each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary, I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight, no matter what I face, you're by my side. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you.
Jesus said, "Come unto me, all ye that are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." I guess it was about 12, 15 years ago. I was at the Greenview Church in Green Valley, not far from here. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was sitting in the parsonage and the phone rang. And I answered the phone, and the first thing I heard was Brent Lee. Not many people call me Brent Lee. And I knew who it was. It was Robin, my mother's niece. And she said, "Brent Lee, I think your mom has had a stroke." Well, I got in the car and I traveled to Craigsville, and sure enough, she'd had a stroke. And she went to the hospital, and from the hospital to the rehab center, and then eventually she got to come home. When she came home, she couldn't talk. All she could do was make sounds. And we went to a speech therapist, and the speech therapist gave me a book on how to make sounds and how to form words. And I actually taught my mother how to speak. And towards the end of her life, she was speaking very fluently. She could say anything and talk and do this and that. But I still had to take care of my mother. I still had to travel to Craigsville and look after her, go to the store for her. I would get up on Monday morning, and I'd travel to Craigsville, and I'd stay Monday night, and I'd come back on Tuesday morning. And I would leave Friday evening, and I'd travel to Craigsville, and I'd stay Saturday, and I'd come back Saturday evening. So I was up there twice a week, but 4 days a week. And it wasn't long till she developed a sugar problem. And I had to go up there, and I would check her sugar. There was a little thing that I would snap on her, and it would draw blood. It would draw blood. And then I had to figure out through a graph how much insulin to give her. And I'd measure the insulin, and I would give her a shot. It's hard to believe that I really did that. But you'll do anything for your loved ones. I remember one Monday morning I got up, and I'd always go to the money machine. I went to the money machine, and I got $100 out, a crisp $100 bill. Drove to Princeton, and Starbucks was there at this time, and someone had gave me a Starbucks card, and I went in and got a cup of coffee and went on my way. And when I got to the Turnpike toll booth, just before I got to it, I reached in my pocket for that $100 bill. I don't know whether there were the easy passes then or not, but I didn't have an easy pass. I had to pay. And I reached in my pocket for that $100 bill, and it wasn't there. That $100 bill wasn't there. Now that was trouble. $100 was a lot back then. $100 is a lot now. But I didn't have that $100, and I pulled off the side of the road, and I looked all over the car, and I couldn't find it. And I began to think, you know, I don't like things in my pockets, receipts and papers and stuff. It just bugs me to death. And when I get things in my pocket, I throw it away. And I thought the only place I've been was Starbucks. And I turned around and I drove back to Starbucks, and I walked into Starbucks, didn't say anything to anybody. I went straight to that trash can that's inside that cabinet. And I pulled that trash can out, and the clerk there, she said, "Can we help you?" And I pulled that trash can out, and guess what was laying on the top? That $100 bill. I got that $100 bill, and I flexed it, and I just walked out. I didn't say a thing. Well, I remember that trip when I went to Craigsville. My mother said she wanted some soup. We only have one grocery store in Craigsville, Foodland. So I had to go to Foodland. There's quite a few people there. And I went and got the soup. And I brought the soup back, and there was a line, only one checkout. There was a line, I was 3 or 4 back, and then people started getting behind me. And I looked at the clerk. I mean, you look at the clerk. I looked at the clerk that was cashing everybody out, and she looked familiar to me. She looked really familiar, and it was really bothering me. You know, you've probably been through that before. You see somebody, and you know them, but you just can't place them. Well, I got up. I was the second one to be checked out, and it hit me who she was. It hit me. If I could have turned around and walked out, I would have. But there was people behind me and people in front of me, and it would be obvious. They would think, well, he don't have no money or something. But if I could have walked out, I would. It hit me who she was. When I was in college, I remember coming home one weekend, and when I got home, I got a telephone call from one of my buddies. He said, "Come to the bar tonight. Come to the bar." I said, okay. It was in Richwood, Oakford Pool in Richwood. I got to the bar. His dad owned the bar, and I went in there, and it was like a high school reunion. There was lots of people I knew. There was lots of drinking. It was a bar. I was right up against the bar, sitting there. And all of a sudden, through all that, this woman gets up, and she gets up on the bar, and she begins to dance. And the longer she danced, the more things she did, if you can imagine what I'm talking about. And that was the woman that was at the checkout counter at Foodland in Craigsville, West Virginia. And I got up there, and I put my face down, and I reached into my pocket, and I got that $100 bill, and I handed it to her, and she checked me out. And I went, and I thought, man, I have escaped. I have escaped. And I was walking to the door, and she said, sir, I don't know whether she did it 3 times or not, but that makes the story better. And I turned around, and she said, do you want your receipt? And I said, I didn't say anything. I just went out the door. She didn't recognize me, but I recognized her. Troubles, problems, worries. I remembered her from years ago. And you know what? She may have been closer to Jesus than I am. But you know what? Every time I see her, and I've seen her a few times, every time I see her, what do I remember? I remember that incident that happened many years ago. She didn't recognize me. I was there right up front, but she didn't recognize me. But I'd recognized her from that incident that happened so many years ago in her life. You know, I don't talk much about the Apostle Paul, but he was a great apostle. He is responsible for writing the most of the New Testament. But let's think about Paul. How did all that begin? You know, he was a Pharisee. He was a member of the Sanhedrin, the ruling body of the Jewish religion. And this Christian sect rose up about Jesus, stories about Jesus. And they were afraid that it would destroy the Jewish religion. And Paul, his mission was to go out and destroy this thing, destroy this Jesus thing. And he went out and he ordered people to stone Christians. You know, Paul was right there watching people stone Stephen. So he was responsible for taking care of this religious sect that was infecting Judaism. And one time he was on the road going to do that very, very thing in Damascus. And as he was on that road, as he was traveling, he encountered the risen Jesus. He encountered Jesus. And Jesus said, Paul, why do you persecute me? And Paul was blinded, and he was taken to a place, and there he sat and he thought and he thought. And you know what happened? The scales fell off of his eyes. He could see clearly what he had done, and he was converted. He became a disciple of Jesus Christ. He went to communities and he preached the good news of Jesus Christ. But what did people think? What did they think? They remembered what Paul had done. And many of them probably rejected Paul. When they saw Paul preaching, they probably said, oh, he's trouble. He's trouble. Remember what he used to do? As bad as you can get. Killing those who believed in Jesus Christ. You know, we all have troubles and we all have problems. Our troubles and problems of the past sometimes follow us into the present and into the future. I worry. I worry about this split in the United Methodist Church. I worry about the local churches. I worry if people will stop coming. I worry how many people was here. I worry about the finances of the churches. I worry about my kids. I worry about my grandkids. I worry about life. I worry about death. I worry about so many things. So many things. So what are we to do? I think we should remember this. Come unto me, all ye that are heavy laden and burdened, and I will give you rest. Jesus will be with us in all of our troubles, all of our problems, all of our concerns. And yes, I have experienced this rest, this peace that passes all understanding. You can't buy it, you can't get it from somebody else. You can only experience it in his name.
Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. Every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary, I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I face, you're by my side. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, I will trust in you.